Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And the unboxing and making of, I'm not sure how many cards, we'll see. It's the unboxing of Simon Says Stamps March 2025 card kit, which is called Tweet Friend. And when it comes to their card kits, you have options for those that might be new. You can buy it just one off, and I'll have a link to the kit. Just purchase, good to go. There is also the subscription option, which saves you a bit of money. The thing to remember with the subscription option is you are not locked in every month. Like, you can choose whether or not you want the kit that month. Yeah, all that info is listed in the subscription option. And then there's the add-ons and things like that, like the coordinating die sets or other products. So, like always, I'll have a link to the kit, the subscription option, and then all the supplies I end up, adding on as well to make whatever I decide to make. And that will all be below. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. And then, I forgot, I have it here somewhere. I had already pulled one item for the kit for a project I did. There it is. A project I did the other day. I was like, this will be perfect. So we'll get to it. Anyway, let's pop everything down here. There we go. Hello, hello. Okay, so here is the kit in a nutshell. Ooh, let me make sure I got everything out of there. I did. Okay, we are good to go. So the kit has the Tweet Friends. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Tweet Friend stamp set. This is a 6x8 stamp set. I like the cherry blossoms. The little birds are cute and sentiments. This is a really cute set. There is, and I do have it, it's not part of the kit. There's a coordinating wafer die set for this. It is a big die set, and that is like an add-on. So, coordinating die set, and like I said, big die set because there's a lot of images. So that is one of the add-on options. So you get the stamp set. There is a 3D embossing folder. This is the Drifting Flowers 3D embossing folder. And then there's this die set, which I've already used in a previous video. It's the Pretty Bows die set. I was kind of excited about this. I don't know. I like them. I used this one in a previous video. But you can't go wrong with little bows. I think it's super cute. So you get those. You get, of course, candy. Can never go wrong with candy. Me and my sweet tooth, I'm a fan. Always. So we've got all of that. And then there is, you get some of Simon's new metallic cord. And then you also get a couple of these are the Tim Holtz Ideology Doomahickeys, which I hoard these. I do. I can't help it. I like to hoard them. Is there a name for these? They're type tags metal adornments. There you go. Yeah, see? And it's got aren't those fun? So these, and Tim has done many videos over the years showing ways to really enhance the writing, taking distress crayons and rubbing it into there, distress paint, rubbing it into there, and then just wiping off the top so the paint or the crayon will settle into the lines so that you can really see the wording. On my camera, it doesn't look like, but in real life, you can easily read them. To live will be an awfully big adventure. Yeah. So you get some of those. And then there is this pattern paper is the Paper Rose Flower Shop pattern paper. It's pretty. It's just pretty. I like that. Oh, this is so spring. So spring. Love it. That one's really pretty too. Aren't those pretty? Love them. So you get those. And then there is some, what is this? We've got, this will be Simon's Bubblegum Glitter Cardstock. I love Simon's Glitter Cardstock. I get asked a lot, like what some of my favorites are. Simon Says Stamps Glitter Cardstock. I've been using it for years. It die cuts wonderfully. It doesn't shed, you know? And it does die cut really, really nicely. Like, again, I have been using their glitter cardstock for years. So you get a half sheet of that, which is super nice. You also get some of the Tim Holtz metallic. Same thing. I've used these a lot. So you can die cut these. They work in embossing folders. I did videos near the end of the year in my 2024 holiday card series where I die cut these metallic papers with ornament wafer dies, and then I used mushroom alcohol ink to make them look like vintage. It was fun. It's fun. So you get some of those to play with. And then there's some Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock. And then a Simon envelope. That's another thing I get asked a lot of. What envelopes I like. I really like the Simon Says Stamp envelopes. I have piles of them. And I use them. I like, especially because they're self-adhesive. That to me is perfection. Love it. So that is, I think that's the entire kit, right? I think I went over everything. Yes. That is the kit in a nutshell. I have no idea what I'm going to make. Are we surprised? I have no idea. Yeah. But thanks to the magic of video editing, this is just going to roll right into it. So wonderful. Just stay tuned and I'll show you guys what I decided to make. I ended up making 3 cards. So yay me. So I started with some, this is distress watercolor paper. And I am stamping a bunch of the images from the Tweet Friend stamp set onto it with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And I stamped multiple panels. The first one with the cherry blossom branches that I loved so much, I ended up stamping it twice. And then I stamped the little bird bath and this little mailbox. And then to color in all these images, I am going to use Distress Oxide inks. So I'm going to just smush some of my ink pads onto one of my little plastic palettes here, just a non-porous surface. And these first colors I'm using are Blueprint Sketch, Tumbled Glass, Stormy Sky, Black Soot, and a little bit of Rusty Hinge. Because these are the colors I chose to color in all these little birds that I decided are going to be bluebirds. So once I've got my ink smushed, I'm going to use my little Tim Holtz Ranger Detail Water Brush, the same brush I've been using for years and years and years. It's my favorite one. Water brushes are finicky. Even this one, I have never yet come across one that's like perfect. Water brushes just are what they are. But the convenience to me is worth the finickiness. And then right off to the side, I do have a cloth that I wipe the brush on in between colors, as well as, again, when the brush is deciding to be finicky and is too wet, I just wipe it on a cloth, move on about my day. So I've super sped this up in editing. This did not take long. I did very simple color, like just filling it in. I am literally slapping the color on. I'm not going all the way, filling in each area. I'm leaving little white areas, things like that. When it's all done, it's just cute. It just works. So I'm mixing the blues for little bluebirds. I used the Rusty Hinge on their little tummies. And the Black Soot was for their beaks, as well as the tips of their tails and whatnot. And then for some of the other images, like the mailbox and the little bird bath, I used weathered wood, the gray shade, which I also added some Rusty Hinge on the mailbox to, give it the rust. I also mixed the weathered wood with the Black Soot for the insides of that little mailbox. For the bird bath, I mixed the weathered wood with a bit of the Stormy Sky to get that blue-gray sort of shade. And then for the the greenery, because I'll use this for the leaves as well, that was Peeled Paint and Rustic Wilderness. And then for the brown, I'm using Walnut Stain. And I'm using the Walnut Stain also for the branches, for all the little cherry blossom branches. So just worked my way around, filled in all these areas. And then all the leaves, Peeled Paint, and a bit of Rustic Wilderness. So everything I just did in sections, it just made it also go a little bit quicker. Again, not quite this fast. I always say it and I mean it. The only thing I would love to speed up in life is like cleaning, laundry, you know, those types of tasks. If I could move this quickly, oh, can you imagine how much I would get done? Anyway, when it comes to coloring though, I just enjoy the process. So for all the little cherry blossoms, I used spun sugar and worn lipstick. I would put the spun sugar on, and then the worn lipstick I kept more towards like the centers or the base of the petals, and that was it. And I used those two on the little mailbox as well, just to give it that little extra something because it was super cute. So once I was done coloring in everything, I did use the coordinating wafer dies to die cut all of them and then set them aside. And then I'm going to use that 3D embossing folder that came in the kit. And for this, I just cut down some Neenah 80 pound. The kit comes with 110 pound. That could be used too. It would work just fine. With the heavier weight though, I would, and this folder, any ones that have like some pretty more deep details, I would like moisten one side with like I usually just do a light spray of water, but I'm just using the 80 pound, so it was fine. And ran that through with the folder, and I did this 3 times. And look at that, look at that detail. It's fabulous. So I have done this in many past videos with the 3D embossing folders. I've flipped this over so that the raised detail is now debossed or pressed in to the cardstock. So I'm working on like the flatter side of the cardstock. And I took 3 of the Distress Oxide ink pads, and I am just wiping this across the cardstock. It's kind of like the blackout technique. I've shown videos doing that where, you know, I can add color to the deboss details and then go over everything with a black ink pad. You can do the same thing with colors. It just depends. But for this, I didn't add any other color. I just used the ink pad to kind of fill it in. I also didn't do this like solid. As you can see, I kind of liked the texture. And it just worked. And it'll depend on the ink pads you use. I've done this with many different ink pads. The thing to remember is I keep my ink pad mostly flat, and I'm not pressing, you know, because if you press really hard with your ink pad, you're going to be pressing that ink into all that deboss detail, and then it's just going to be a hot mess. Because you just want the ink pad to pick up the most raised area, which in this case is the flat cardstock. Hopefully that makes sense. So I did, one I did with peeled paint, one I did with Stormy Sky, and this final one I'm doing with spun sugar. And like I said, I liked the texture. The oxides are really good for that. It also helps that all of my oxide ink pads probably need to be like refilled because I use them so much. But I like that texture look. And I went in the same direction. I didn't go back and forth in like swirls or side to side. I just went in one direction to keep it all somewhat consistent. And then after I covered these panels with those oxide inks, I did end up trimming these down just a bit so that they're 4 by 5 1/4, so just slightly smaller than my A2 cards. And then I pulled out one of the Simon Says Stamp nested domed arches frame wafer dies, and I just die cut some black cardstock from that. And then I put foam strips on the back of this. This is one of the Waffle Flower black foam strips, the thinner one, and they were just the right thickness for this. Because I've talked about this before, I do not have patience. And I wasn't going to trim down like a ton of foam. Another option would be to just die cut, and that's normally what I do. I just die cut, you know, multiples, and will adhere them together with craft tacky glue. But the foam was just the right thickness, so I was like, ooh, this is for once actually faster than die cutting and stacking layers. So you could skip this though. I just did this to build a little bit of dimension. You could technically turn these into shakers doing this. Again, I didn't have the patience for that. I just wanted the dimension. So I just worked my way around and put these foam strips on the back of these black cardstock frames. And then I'm going to just adhere the frame to the background. It just kind of like frames all the little elements that I had already colored and die cut. So, and off camera, I had like figured out my little layouts, and that's when I was like, ooh, I can do 3 cards. So did the 3 backgrounds, adhered the 3 frames with the foams, with the foam strips, and then all the other little elements that I'd colored, those I popped on with Simon's foam squares and created these little scenes. And again, They're just cute. I'm ready for spring. For those of you that are already experiencing it, you're just very lucky, okay? It's still like miserable and snowy, and really it's ice here because we're getting warmer weather, but it's just turning everything to ice. So Saskatchewan doesn't really get spring till about May. So anyway. These are fun. That's another reason why I like crafting. 'Cause it's like I can make spring with paper, okay? And I'll just ignore the fact that it's going to be a while. So I adhered all my little elements with a combination of just little foam squares and craft tacky glue. And yeah, even the little like music notes in this set, I'd stamp those and then just die cut them because there was even coordinating wafer dies for those. So after I created all my like card front panels, of course I'm going to add a bunch of splatter. So I've got my splat box out. I'm going to use some white gouache first. So I put that on my little palette, watered this down with a little bit of water to thin it out so I can get it into a good splatterable consistency. And then splatter this all over these backgrounds. Now you could add the splatter before adding the frame and the little elements. I personally, obviously, did this afterwards, but you could just do like the splatter on the backgrounds and then let that dry, add your frame, add your little elements. But I like getting splatter on everything. It just is what it is. So added the white splatter to all three of these panels, and then I'm going to add black splatter, which I know freaks some people out, but it's fun and I like it. And again, I have been, I'm like a splatter expert. I'm being sarcastic, but I have been doing this long enough that I can somewhat control it. Again, it's got a mind of its own. It likes to go where it wants, but I'm pretty decent, at not completely covering like the main images, things like that. Although I've shown in other videos, if there is like, if say I already adhered everything, but I didn't want to get splatter on the birds, I would have just die cut like copy paper and place that over top to mask them if I was concerned about it. And I've done that with, sentiments, different things that it's like, oh, it's already adhered. I don't want splatter on this. Then I'll just create a quick little mask, whether it's a die cut piece or I'll just, cut down or tear down a little piece or scrap of cardstock or paper, cover it up, or the stamp itself. You can use the stamp, just place that, make sure it's clean, but just place that on top of the little image splatter, because any splatter that you get on the stamps, you can just wipe off and you're good to go. So I added all my splatter, set those aside. I then took sentiments from the set, and I'm going to stamp these onto just a piece of Simon's Cotton Candy cardstock. And I'm going to stamp those with that same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then once I've got these stamped, there are, in that coordinating wafer die set, there are wafer dies for all of these sentiments as well. So I'm going to use the coordinating wafer dies to die cut these sentiments. I'm also going to die cut a second layer for the sentiments just to give them a little bit more stability, because these I'm also going to pop up with little foam squares and whatnot. And then off camera, I also stamped the sub-sentiments for these just onto scraps, so you can see them there, on white cardstock, and I just trimmed those down with my paper trimmer. So, had the sub-sentiments ready to go. These main ones had stamped and then die cut, and then I just die cut scraps for just to back them, and I'm going to adhere them together with craft tacky glue. So, like I said, this is more to give them stability. They don't need a whole lot of dimension because I'm going to give them dimension with the foam squares. And this is one of the few times where I did like trim down the foam squares to fit behind areas of this. Yeah, like I said, I don't have patience. Although sometimes, when I'm really just getting in the zone of crafting, it's not even really about patience. It's just my thing is I just don't have a lot of time. I do this as a job. I got 5 million things on my plate, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, when you get in the zone and doing my thing, it's not even about patience, really. It's just like enjoying the process. So I did trim down. Don't expect me to do this very often, but I did trim down some of those foam squares to fit behind the sentiments so I could suspend them like over these frames and put them where I wanted. So I adhered these sentiments to all these cards, and then the little sub-sentiments did the exact same thing, just put little foam squares on the back of them. And then my card bases are just top folding A2 white note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I put the card bases into my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp these cherry blossom branches with the Spun Sugar Distress Oxide ink. So I'm going to After I lined up the first one, I just keep lining up the next card base, inking up the stamps, stamping them onto the inside. So I did that on the inside of all 3 of these cards. And then I took a couple of the little bird images, lined those up, and these I'm going to stamp with the Stormy Sky ink. And that's going to finish off the insides. I didn't add any other sentiments, any other stamping. That was more than enough. It just gives the insides a little something something. So once I got those stamped onto the insides, I had adhered the card front panels with craft tacky glue, let that dry. And then as my final little bit of embellishment, I've got some Dylusions Stardust stickles, because I've been back on the stickles train lately, and I love stickles. I love stickles. I really do. I've loved them I forget. It's been over a decade. Love them. So if you apply stickles very thin, and that's what I did on all of these, just very thin. Little, kept them kind of the flower centers. I added them to the birds and wherever, you know. But if you apply it thin, it dries quite quickly. When you apply stickles really thick, it can take a really long time to dry. But this, I'm just dabbing it very lightly, so I'll get the sparkle and the shimmer. I'm not worried about like building dimension with the stickles, anything like that. I just want the little bit of sparkle. So I also applied it thin so that you can still obviously see all that coloring I did. You know, it's not covering anything up. So just little tiny dabs of it, and then I just got to let that dry, and these cards were complete. And they were a lot of fun. I had a hard time, like, at first, like, visualizing what I was going to make when I first unboxed the kit. But once I started, like stamping and coloring, you know, just getting into it, I had a lot of fun. These were fun, and they're sparkly, and they're super cute, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'll have links to all of the things in the description box below the video, the kit, the subscription. I'll link, of course, list and link all the other supplies I use, so you can check that out below if you are interested. As always, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. That helps a ton. I very much appreciate it. I try to read and respond to as many comments as possible, and I do appreciate you guys' feedback. And subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!